She vanished in the chill of a February night, leaving behind her car, but no clear answer. A 21-year-old nursing student, miles from home, disappears. It was February 9th, 2004. Maura Murray, a young nursing student at the University of Massachusetts Amherst, drove her silver Saturn to the mountains of New Hampshire. She was headed north, not for rest, but for escape. A weekend trip, she told her professors. But something was already off. An unfamiliar accent on a phone call to her boyfriend changed tones in her voice. Subtle distress. Just days earlier, she had abruptly withdrawn from her college courses, sending only an email. She packed a bag, charged her phone, withdrew cash. None of her closest friends had seen this coming. And when her car rolled off the road and onto a remote byway just past Woodsville, New Hampshire, signs of what followed were silent. No screams, no confrontation indicated, just a crashed vehicle and vanished driver. And now, nearly 2 decades later, that night remains a puzzle box. The question remains, where did Maura go next? In the early hours of February 9th, her Saturn struck a snowbank off Route 112. Passing motorists stopped, concerned. One man pulled up behind the car. He found Maura inside, alive, visibly upset but coherent. She declined further assistance, telling him help was on the way. She spoke of calling her father. He was about 2 hours away. Then she walked into the woods. He offered a ride. She politely declined. By the time he finished calling emergency services, she had vanished among the trees. That single simple action, walking away into freezing air, has become the hinge on which all speculation tilts. Not frightened, no visible injuries, just gone. Over the next days, a widespread search was launched. Local tracker dogs combed the area. Volunteers trudged through knee-deep snow, but evidence was sparse. Witnesses reported a dark vehicle following the crash site the night before. One person recalled hearing cries that did not match her voice. Still, authorities could not corroborate these accounts. The case slid into the realm of missing person mystery. No body. No conclusive finding. In the years that followed, the case extended tendrils into many lives. A private investigator was brought in. Tips came from across the country, reports of sightings in Canadian border towns, whispers of human trafficking, theories of mistaken identity. Family has never stopped searching. They have never stopped hoping. I say this as someone who's half a lifetime into this work. Perseverance like that deepens the heart's investment. Over nearly 2 decades, the case has remained officially unsolved. In 2014, the New Hampshire State Police closed the case file, citing lack of evidence, but promised to revisit should new leads arise. That closure did not bring closure. Not for the family, not for the community, not for those of us who study human stories, disappearing into silence. There are moments in the story that ripple outward. In 2017, a skier discovered what appeared to be fragments of a human bone near the crash site, a single clue that prompted fresh testing. The lab results were inconclusive. The fragments were determined to belong to an adult, but not Maura specifically. Still, that revival of hope echoed through the probes, reigniting questions echoing in empty cabins and snow-packed roads. Let's pause and consider details. Maura had never driven in harsh winter conditions like that remote stretch. She had called her father, described trauma or pressure in earlier communications. None of it spells a clear answer, but it sketches outline after outline of uncertainty. And that, gentle viewer, is where suspense deliberately deepens. Each detail, however slight, invites reflection. Was she frightened of what would happen at school? Was she fleeing something we don't know? Did a passing stranger see something more than they recall? Or did she walk willingly into the not known? The testimony of witnesses remains fragmentary. No camera recorded her, no paper trail beyond that one brief crash. As the story tiptoes forward, we encounter years of dead ends. A 2018 social media post claimed someone saw Maura working in a diner in Vermont. That led to an interview, but authorities dismissed it due to lack of supporting detail. Similarly, reported sightings in Canada turned out to be cases of mistaken identity. Each time, the thread unraveled. Each time, hope flickered then dimmed again. But that flicker carries weight. All the while, the tone remains respectful, for this is a human life unaccounted for. The lack of violence described, deliberate, not sensational, makes the absence feel sharper, deeper. We feel the emotional gravity of an unresolved life. Fast forward to 2025. There have been renewed appeals from local investigators. They've said that if anyone has credible information, no matter how small, it could be the thread that unravels the mystery. But still, investigators caution, this case cannot be solved by speculation. It requires verifiable facts. Let me lean into humility here. I carry no definitive theory. Because here's the core of the mystery. Maura Murray simply vanished. Her actions immediately after the crash defy the expectations of a panicked victim. The calm with which she spoke to a passerby, the decisiveness with which she headed into the woods, leave us suspended between possibility. Was she clear-headed, distressed, or driven by something else entirely? Stories like these are not meant to be concluded with tidy ends. That is part of their weight. So I sit with questions rather than answers. What might someone do if carrying unbearable pressure, if convinced a change was necessary? What would it take to walk away completely? Alternatively, what if someone approached, offering help, letting her escape into anonymity? Or worse, I speak to you, not as one who claims closure, but as one who carries curiosity with respect. You are left with the echo of unanswered questions. Could unexamined evidence still lie buried near the crash? Is there someone somewhere who holds a memory untold? And, most poignantly, if Maura Murray had chosen to vanish, what fears or hopes drove her steps into the night? In closing, we invite you to reflect, not to sensationalize. This is a story of a person, not a puzzle. It's a story that reminds us, unresolved mysteries are less about horror and more about humanity's fragility. When someone disappears without trace, the silence becomes a backdrop to our own questioning. So let that linger. She was 19 days from turning 22 when she vanished. She left a car behind, but she walked into the unknown. 2 decades later, we still ask, where is Maura Murray? End there, with quiet resolve. No twist revealed, no guilty party singled out, no graphic scene, just questions and an invitation to stay present in the mystery. In the quiet of a pre-dawn dawn, 43 voices fell silent in a town that believed it was safe. A night full of promise ended in whispers and unanswered questions. Questions that still reverberate in the minds of families, communities, and a nation. What happened to those students in Iguala Guerrero? What shadows hold the truth? The seeds of this tragedy were sown in the weeks before that fateful night. Late September 2014, in the city of Iguala in Guerrero, Mexico, 43 students from the Ayotzinapa Rural Teachers College boarded buses to travel to the state capital of Chilpancingo for a commemorative march on September 26th. These were young men committed to education, to teaching, to change. There was conscious idealism in their choice to become rural teachers, a vocation demanding both courage and a deep belief in community. But that evening, something went terribly wrong. As their buses rolled into the city, confrontations with local police erupted. Official accounts say that police opened fire, injuring students before detaining them. The details remain contested, but several of those detained disappeared, vanishing into thin air. That was the last clear trace. In the weeks that followed, the families of the missing began demanding answers. Of course, as a viewer, you may already know some of these facts, but stepping back, I invite you to consider the human texture beneath. Students disappearing, families desperate, a community scattered. And then came the investigation. Official investigators, forensic teams, and the Mexican government spoke of a narco-organized crime link. The students, they said, had been handed over to a criminal group. From there, bodies were burned, hillsides excavated, all to create confusion, or worse, to erase evidence forever. Even today, narratives diverge, and the forensic trail is incomplete. Yet, amid official reports, what strikes me is the family's unwavering persistence in seeking truth. Mothers lighting candles, fathers traveling from village to village, gathering testimonies or hearsay. Every fragment, every rumor, every hopeful whisper fed into mounting tension. Is someone covering it up? Is there more than what meets the eye? Slowly, more layers unfolded. Independent investigators, international experts, journalists, each peeling back institutional rhetoric to search for tangible answers. Their work questioned whether the accepted version matched reality. Their findings often clashed with official statements, sowing further suspense. Were we seeing the whole picture, or just a constructed narrative? I want you now to imagine, for a moment, The quiet desperation of parents believing their children might still be alive, yet confronted by bureaucratic stonewalling. Or the anguish of communities grappling with a story that felt framed, manipulated, incomplete. This is where the story deepens, not through explicit horror, but through emotional rupture. We sense that something deeper is at work. Institutional failure, organized complicity, or at least the shadow of both. The unanswered questions multiply. Let us pause here to reflect on the pacing. Slow, measured, and deliberate. Every detail matters. The buses, the students, the town at night, the phone calls, the negotiations, the forensic reports, the framed photos held by grieving families. There is sorrow, yes, but more than that, there is a gathering storm. By late 2014 and early 2015, the missing had become a national tragedy in Mexico. Protests erupted across cities. The world watched. More forensic efforts, more excavations, more hearings, but still, most of the 43 remained missing. A few skeletal remains were found, but only a tragic fragment of the story. This lack of closure deepened the mystery. It is in what is left unknown that the real tension and the real tragedy lies. Because when evidence, or more pointedly trust, disappears, what remains is a painful void. So we linger with the families, with the communities of Guerrero, with a nation shaken. They still wait. They still ask, where are our children? What forces conspired to silence them? And will we ever know? In the years that followed, commissions were established, investigations reopened. Some officials were charged. In 2022, the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights called for further inquiry, emphasizing unresolved lines of questioning. Yet, years roll on and answers are partial. No definitive resolution. As of today, the majority of the 43 remain missing. The official narrative, alternative theories, and international concerns coexist, uneasy, incomplete. Consider, without sensationalism, the weight of this ongoing absence. 43 lives unaccounted for. And behind each number, a student, a sister, a brother, a friend, no longer here to teach, to speak, to laugh. That silence is the core of our unease. That silence is what binds us to the story, and what demands justice, accountability, and memory. In closing, let us not rush to tidy up this narrative with a neat ending, because as things stand, no, there is no full resolution. There remain families demanding truth, international bodies urging further investigation, journalists and researchers still digging. And the young teacher students? They are still missing. But perhaps the real resolution lies elsewhere, in our continued attention, in refusing to let the 43 fade from memory. We honor them, and we hold accountable those who might obscure the truth. To you watching this, let the lingering questions resonate. What deeper forces allowed this to happen? How do institutional gaps perpetuate tragedy? And how do we, as conscientious observers, keep seeking justice, not for closure alone, but for responsibility, for memory, for truth? In the end, the story of the 43 missing students is not just a case file. It is a call to listen, to question, to bear witness, and to recognize that sometimes the greatest suspense lies not in gruesome details, but in absence, the absence of answers, the absence of bodies, the absence of justice. I speak to you with humility, respectful of those who still live what we cannot fully understand. May we continue seeking, continuing listening, continuing hoping, and may we never let the 43 go unseen. At 2 a.m., a weary college student calls home. He's pulling off the road to sleep. Hours later, his vehicle is found crashed, belongings inside, yet he has vanished without a trace. What unfolded in the quiet darkness that night remains one of the most haunting mysteries of modern times. He was 19 years old. Bryce Laspisa, a graphic and industrial design student at Sierra College, seemed like any other bright young man. Talented, warm-hearted, and full of creative promise. He'd spent the summer at home in Laguna Niguel, California, after his family moved from Illinois following his high school graduation in 2012. By late August 2013, Bryce had returned to school. On the surface, everything appeared normal. He attended classes, reconnected with friends, and resumed his relationship. Yet those close to him began noticing subtle but concerning changes. His roommate, Sean, and his girlfriend, Kim, saw a growing restlessness. He was drinking heavily, hard liquor during weekends, and taking Vyvanse, a prescription stimulant he didn't medically require, to stay alert during long gaming sessions. By August 27th, something shifted. He broke up with Kim via text, reassuring her that she'd be better off without him. He exchanged heartfelt words with his roommate. "I love you, bro. You are the best person I've ever met. You saved my soul." That same day, he gave away his Xbox and a pair of diamond earrings, things of emotional significance. Worried, Sean called Bryce's mother, Karen, who then reached out to him. That evening, he was at Kim's apartment. She had taken his keys, fearing he wasn't in a fit state to drive. Karen urged Kim to return them, and Bryce left around 11:30 p.m., saying cryptically, "I have a lot to talk to you about," before asking his mother not to fly up until they'd spoken again. He drove through the night. At 9 a.m. the next morning, he ran out of gas near Buttonwillow. A roadside attendant named Christian delivered 3 gallons, but Bryce remained parked for hours. Concerned, Karen asked Christian to check again. At 3 p.m., he found Bryce still there. He encouraged him to press on. Bryce agreed. Later, police located him via his cell phone, just a few miles down the freeway. They found him lucid, not under influence, no drugs or alcohol detected in the vehicle. He contacted his mother and promised he was heading home. Then came the 2 a.m. call. Bryce told his mother he was too tired to continue and planned to sleep in his car. He promised to call when he woke, but he never called again. At dawn, California Highway Patrol discovered his beige 2003 Toyota Highlander overturned off an embankment near Castaic Lake. The rear window was shattered, and his phone, wallet, laptop, and personal items remained inside. Surveillance footage placed him driving on an access road around 2:15 a.m., minutes after the last call. Search teams combed the lake by boat and sonar, found nothing. Bloodhounds tracked his scent toward a nearby truck stop, but there the trail stopped. In the days that followed, a burned body found close by was not his. Other remains discovered later also proved unrelated. What happened next? Theories abound. One suggests Bryce, cornered by emotional or mental turmoil, drove toward the lake in what may have been a failed suicide attempt. The embankment's angle made the lake appear closer than it was. The rear window's damage might point to desperation or escape. Another posits he slipped into confusion after possibly hitting his head in the crash. He may have wandered off disoriented and ended up near the truck stop, beyond recognition. Some believe he intended to vanish, to leave everything behind and adopt a new identity. His valuables remained behind. If so, he orchestrated his disappearance with surprising care. There's also the unsettling possibility of foul play. His isolation, vulnerability, and the remote location could have left him exposed. Yet no hard evidence supports this nor implicates anyone. For Bryce's parents, Karen and Michael, every day has been a living wake. Unanswered calls, no finality, no closure. They've kept their hope alive, distributing posters, managing a Find Bryce Laspisa Facebook page, and marking anniversaries with vigils. In 2023, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children released an age-progressed image showing what Bryce might look like at 29, still urging the public to come forward. We may never know. Bryce Laspisa was a young man, caught in a moment of crisis or transformation, before vanishing into the night. His story invites us to hold the uncertainty, an unquiet ache bound by love, loss, and enduring mystery. Have we failed in noticing the quiet signs around us? Do we dare to confront how fragile the human mind can feel when stretched? And in the quiet hours when words go unspoken and hearts seek solace, who among us won't wonder, what if?